Where do the songs come from? With me today is Mike Duke, songwriter, singer, and keyboardist from Wet Willie and Delbert McClinton, who most notably inked some hits with Huey Lewis and the News, many others. Full disclosure, Mike is an old family friend and a Thai food freak who wrote a tune and sang with the Christmas Jug Band and is currently part of the Rancho Nicasio Roadhouse in western Marin County near San Francisco, where we caught up with him today.
Doing it all for my baby, and I hope you love me like you say I do, and I hope you love me like her Lord have no strings, no shock of the chains, but I'm holding on for dear life. She's like rolling seven every time I roll a dice.
All right, so Mike Duke, thank you for joining me.
Tim, it's great to be with you today.
Well, we finally got this worked out to come out here to this beautiful Nicasio area, have a little music songwriting chat.
Evidence at the crime scene.
Yeah, exactly. So you've had a long history of songwriting and performing and singing and toured with some great people and stuff. And I was curious about a couple things. I've heard a lot of your songs, amazing stuff, and a whole different flavor than a lot of the other songwriters I know. So it always makes me curious. What's the best environment for you for songwriting to happen? What you would say?
It all depends on just mood, and I'm not a person that has an office that goes in and writes, and there are people that do that. Paul Simon famously had an office. He went to the office and like clocked in and stayed there to make himself write something every day. Johnny Cash said, write something every day, write a song every day, and pretty soon you'll have a good one. And, that's what he told his children. You got to write a song every day. And we are writing the song. Every day I write the book, It's a classic, and it is the truth. But I don't have any particular method.
So you mean like just from day-to-day things that happen, it's all kind of fodder that comes in?
Right. And the advice I would give to people who are trying to write is when you have an idea, if it means something to you, it's going to mean something to somebody else. And if you can explain what that feeling is, that's really good. All this is out the door. Now, it's like you get a slogan and you get a vibe and boom, 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 hey, it's kind of like that. And I'm not in that bag. Unfortunately, my songs are meaningful and have some lyrics, and that's okay, though. I like dance music, too, and if it makes people move and they get into it, that's great. But I don't want to have one phrase over and over and over. It means you can't vocalize what the idea is,
So I'm getting from this too that it makes sense to kind of, I wouldn't say ignore, but not get too caught up in the current trends
not
of the
focus
day.
on the fact I've got to write something down here. Right. You get that blank page syndrome. I've done that a little bit with people that wanted to co-write, and we just kind of looked at the paper and walked around and had some coffee. And Huey came out here one time in the cottage. We were walking around trying to write something, and it was just pacing around and drinking coffee and having a cookie and can't think of an idea and maybe throw out a word or something, and it didn't work, and then he got a message and had to leave. And so he didn't write anything that day, and it was a long way out here. I went to Muscle Shoals one time, and there was a hit country songwriter said, I'd love to write with you. I got a place up at the lake. We go up there, up at the river. And I said, all right. We went out to this place in the river, and we carried groceries and stuff. We could just hang out. We got zero done. And he was having hits on the radio. I mean, numerous hits. And we just couldn't. I said, I feel like I feel like a hog looking at a wristwatch. I'm not getting anything out of this. It's like, I don't understand this. We couldn't click on an idea. And we had two or three.
So have you co-written a lot?
No, not a lot. Sometimes I do. It just depends. Like I said, my method is How do you feel about this? It's like fishing.
Yeah.
You go and see what you can catch.
Yeah.
You know, but you have to have the intent to get something. If you're writing for a project, I can see sitting down with paper and pen and trying to say, how does this song fit with that song? I've done that a little bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Inspiration is good. A word can give you a song.
Do you ever, or does your co-writer ever, does it ever set up like you have a beginning of an idea, maybe just a hook and a line?
You come with an idea. I've got an idea too.
Yeah.
When I co-wrote with Delbert McClinton, I went over to his house and he said, I got a song I want you to help me write another verse for. And we did. And then I said, I've got a song I need you to help me write a verse for. And we finished it. Although I sat down at his baby grand piano and the first chord I played, one of the bass strings busted. And it was like, oh my God, let's hope this isn't, a harbinger.
Static electricity.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It was like, bam. And it hadn't been played, is what it was. So, sometimes you do that and you collaborate on things that are existing or you come up with something new. Joe New and I, who used to live right over the hill in Woodacre, great songwriter, wrote some stuff for John Cougar Mellencamp and has written some bluegrass stuff. He really stretches. He is kind of country in aspect, but it's more than that, you know? It's a little more developed
and
than
that.
that.
Soul Cruising is a kind of R&B song.
Yeah, he's got a range that he can do. And whether or not you can sing or play in that genre doesn't matter as long as the idea gets down.
Yeah.
Somebody else can interpret it. I wrote a song for women called Estrogen Bomb. I might drop the estrogen bomb. And so it's about, moods, and you go through moods and look out. I've got my own idea how stuff should be. And Candy Kane, famous exotic dancer from LA and a hipster from LA, cut it, and she cut it so differently. It was like, wow. She cut it like, and mine was boom, boom, boom. I might drop the estrogen bomb. So it was like, it's the artist can interpret your thing, and she did a great job on it too.
It's funny. Years ago, the Moonlighters when the Moonlighters had morphed eventually into the four-piece kind of what Curtin called a skinny tie band, like a rock and roll band.
Sure.
We were sitting around 5 Plymouth there, where I used to live. Where Audie's still living, my God. And the four of us, Tony Johnson. And we were trying to write some, and there was a lot of pacing around, and someone would throw out an idea, and it would just kind of follow the floor.
Yeah, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, no, they could try something else. And boy, so it was kind of a tough audience for songwriting in a way, because there's, to find something that everybody thinks is awesome.
Yeah,
that's like a narrow little.
It's very narrow. Pop.
Yeah.
It's kind of make it pop so that it reaches this side and that side.
Yeah.
And there are always going to be people in the crowd that, the music is just the background.
Yeah.
It's like wallpaper.
Yeah.
They come to see who's sitting there, and they talk to each other during the thing. It might inspire a conversation for them.
Yeah.
I've had crowds that I'll say, I'm going to take a little break and let them work out this story they're working on here. They are obviously getting to the meat of the scene. I'm going to let them have a moment, and they got semi-offended, but not really.
Well, that's like when you get hired to play a party or something, a private event, and they go, we want the music to start right at 5 because the guests are coming at 4:30, and you're like, have these people... Are you uniting a bunch of people that haven't seen each other in a while? Why don't we just play some background music on the stereo and we'll play it like at 6, because they're not going to be.
No. I did that for a friend. She had a new house and a new piano, and it was all marble staircase and white piano downstairs. And the piano, of course, was so new it was scary. Sometimes they come tuned and sometimes they don't. And so I said, I'll come over and play a couple of songs. And so I came over there, and she liked what I did. She'd heard me play or do something, and nobody else did. They were kind of offended that I was so soulful and bluesy and loud. And the room was like an echo chamber. It was like anything you did was like bang, So somebody came over and said, could you keep it down a little bit? Because they were all business.
Yeah.
They were talking business, and they were going out on the patio rather than be in the main room, the entrance, the foyer. And so I closed the lid on the piano, and I played softer and sang softer, and that was still too much. So I just barely played, And then this woman came over to me and said, do you know any folk songs? Peter, Paul, and Mary. And I'm going, well, I'm a songwriter, and these are just some originals that I wrote. And I said, I really don't know that material well enough to do it. I appreciate it. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
For the time, it was what was happening.
You don't want me doing that.
Right.
Anyway.
And so I did 2 more songs, and I just slipped out of the place. And the woman said, well, wait a minute, I'm going to pay you. I said, no, I don't need to get paid for that. It was like a big echo chamber in her, and with champagne.
Like a wine cave or something. So do you do something, do you do anything to kind of get in the right frame of mind? Say I got to really finish this song tomorrow. You get up in the morning. And is there anything you kind of lay
Rehearse, play some chords,
Just
try some other stuff.
Yeah.
Just beat it up a little bit, Just try to say, maybe it should go this way instead of that way, The chord could influence you that you're playing. The word could be your inspiration. The beat, the idea.
And sometimes
all these
just
things.
picking up an instrument and the first thing that comes out.
If you're a guitar player, if you could play keys, it really makes you have to change the approach to the thing.
Yeah.
If you can do that, just chording along. Doc that plays baritone with Tower of Power, fabulous musician, great. So much feel, so much funk. And he used to carry around a little Casio, and he may still have it, about this big. My finger would hit 3 of the keys if I touched them. And he would go, ding, 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 and come up with ideas. And it's just melody. It's like something that can translate into his thing or something else. Anything that will lead you into the path of what the song is saying or doing. The song can have its own life. It can be its own thing. And it's not easy to bag something you're doing. You're like, oh, that's country, or that's pop, or that's,
that's a waste of time.
You can make it, you can make it into whatever you want to be. I've seen songs really dramatically change.
I heard an interview on the radio to some creative writer that I can't remember his name now, but he said something interesting, and this interviewer is like, so I understand you write quite often, but you have a family with like 4 kids running around. Like, how would you ever do that? Mm-hmm. And he said something interesting. He said, I always try to allocate a certain amount of time in a given week for just new ideas. Like sometimes you sit down and you already got a partly finished song and you're trying to add more to it, or maybe you're working on the arrangement or whatever. But I like to, that's all fine. You can do that anytime really, but I like to leave some time for just new ideas and just, even though I got 3 things that are unfinished, I'll just play around a little bit to get things moving.
Right. It might take your mind off obsessing about the song to do something else. One time, Joe New and I were writing when I had a house in Novato, and his kid was like 3 or 4 and was rambunctious, and we were really babysitting. And he came over there with the kid, and we all had a snack. And then I said, let's go out in the backyard because he can really romp out there. It's a big thing, and there were some chickens back there. And it was in a really nice area over there, And so we cut him loose, and we put up the piano out there, and we put a little cassette machine or something. It's a long time ago. And we got it going, and he got an acoustic guitar, and we were goofing around on a song. And we came up with a good idea and got into it, and the kid could tell, wow, they're doing something. And he came over there, and he came up to the piano, and he said, he put his arm across the piano keys and went, don't play. Play with me. And we went, okay. And so we stopped for a minute and ran over and did something with him, and then sat back down. And then we started again, and we got to this place where we were coming up with parts of the song. And he came over to his dad, and he went, put against the guitar neck, and he went, don't play. And I said, when that kid is grown, we're going to have to taunt him. And he became a really good jazz guitarist. And I'm saying, I'm going to go to his gig and go, don't play. And so we wrote a good song that day.
That's a great story. I love that.
That was one of our writing and babysitting gigs. When you got to do 2 things, or you have to be, one time a policeman, county sheriff came in, and he had seen us play, and he was friends with an older fellow that was a retired detective that lived out here and way retired. He's like in his 80s. Yeah. And we would be in there talking, and he would come in, and everybody wanted to hear what we were talking about. And he would go back to things like looking for Angela Davis or the Manson family or something. That was his time. When the courthouse was shot up, he was there, Oh, wow. And so he was talking this police chat. And so this guy came in another time when it was just me. He says, let's write a song. I said, well, do you sing or play? He says, no. I said, have you got any ideas? No. I said, have you ever done anything like this? He says, no. And I said, well, We have a couple of problems here, but I'm working here. I have to answer the phone and sell hot dogs and stuff.
He
you know,
just
so
knew you were a
that-
songwriter. Or
Yeah,
something.
he knew I was a songwriter. He wanted to do that. And so I said, come back when I'm not sitting here doing this. And he came back on a day I had some time off, and we went back to a piano. And I said, first of all, what do you want to write about? And he said he was in love with this woman that was with somebody else. And I said, oh, that does make a great ballad. And I said, he wanted to write it for her, to tell her how he felt. And I said, okay, we can do this. We'll do it. And I said, tell me a couple of things. And so he told me a little bit of the story, how they met and all this stuff. And I'm just like thinking of stuff, and I'm not writing anything down. I'm just thinking of it. So I said, you know what? That's good. We've got a premise now. And I said, I have an idea, and he had an idea that we both had thought about. I wish it was me. It was with you, and that's the name of the song. I wish it was me. Great song.
Yeah.
And we finished it. We actually finished. He came back another time, and I had the chords, the bridge, everything but the bridge. We needed a bridge, and it mentioned everything that was why he wanted this person to be with them. You know, it started. I saw you laughing, and I fell in love with your smile, and that was the opening line, and that kind of sets the whole thing up. It writes itself after that. It's fill in the blank.
Did he ever sing it? Did you hear him
No,
sing
he didn't sing it. He doesn't sing. I sang it.
Oh, he wanted
And
to.
I said, how does this sound? Yeah.
So
yeah.
how was he going to sing it to her?
No. I made a demo.
Oh, and you're
I
singing
went over
it.
to John Rewind's basement, and we cut it, and it really sounded good. It was just keyboards.
So he's going to play this demo of you singing it to her.
and say, this is a song that we wrote for you.
Okay.
I'm from me to you, you know?
Interesting.
And he's interpreting what I'm thinking and what I'm wanting to say, you know, in an artistic way. And so it was so funny. He came back the third time, and we went out, and I was playing the piano, and I showed him what I had, and he said, that sounds really good. I said, it needs to go somewhere else. A bridge is the typical format to change from the verse to another structure in the song, so that you aren't just saying the verse over and over and singing the same melody. And I said, I came up with a couple of ideas. I said, I'll be your tiger, you can be my butterfly. And he went, wait a minute. Did we talk about this? I said, no, I just trying to think of images, you know, the man, the woman. He said, well, I have a tiger on my shoulder, tattoo. And I'm going, well, I've never seen that, because he always came in a uniform, you know. And he said, and she has a butterfly on her ankle. And I went, woo, mystical.
You are dialed in, Mike. Oh,
well, that one I was. That one I was channeling them. And so we got it done. And it's a great country song. And he can't do anything with it. I can't do anything. Haven't done anything with it. And it's just there. And
We
it's a
got to
great
find you
song.
a country artist to do that.
Well, I wish it was me.
So him, this is great. We're trying to write for one person. So that reminds me of something else I want to ask you. Like, do you, when you're working on a song, or your sort of impulse to write a song, is there like an audience in mind? Are you thinking of like a gig where this would be played, or a situation where there'd be people there, or?
Well, I want to write a song. Usually I'm focused on trying to get something upbeat, and not all ballads, because we can sit around and write about our divorce all week, you know. You can sit around and talk about being abandoned by somebody all week. But unless it's really a strong idea, I would say try to write something upbeat and something that's joyous. And I would love to write something up there and danceable and fun, you know, but I don't sit down with a focus just to do that. One time a woman came up to me we were playing a gig when I was with Delbert McClinton, and we were at House of Blues, Chicago, and this woman in the crowd was like looking, and Delbert took a little break and said, Mike's going to sing a couple of songs, and I would give him a break, and he'd go off and get a coffee and come back on and do the rest of the set. And so after the show, she came back and said, I want to talk to you. I said, okay, what's up? She said, well, I've got a script, and I need a piece of music written for it. Have you ever done anything like that? And I said, no, but I can write some music. I can do this. And she said, describe the scene. It's a buddy movie with cops, and one of them's black and one's white, and they're patrolling around in Chicago in a really funky area looking for a suspect. and it's rainy, and the windshield wipers are clicking, you
Wow.
know, and it suggested the song, and I called it "Going There," and it's like boom, 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 ba-da. And it was like, wow, it's pretty mystical. Like, what is this going to say? Is it going to have words? No, it didn't have words. And it was just like to set the tone of this. Why won't you? One policeman, the dialogue before the scene for the montage of them driving and looking at each other, you know, it's like a moment in the film, is mad because the other one won't talk to him about this divorce that's imminent he thinks he's going to have, you know, and they're just like, why won't you talk to me about it? You know, it's called Going There. And it was like, I wrote that, and it was incredible. I sent her the music. She loved it. She lost the backer that was going to do the movie because it was about Louisville and killing thoroughbred horses for the insurance, and it still occurs, mob-related. And she told me that her dad had talked to her about this back in the 70s. It was prominent that was happening, and they were investigating it. Look at the Churchill Downs this year. There's been 3 of those in the last year. Yes,
It still
deaths of horses at the
Do you
track.
suppose they got to the backer or something?
No, I don't know, but he said you shouldn't go ahead with this because you might be in danger. You know, somebody might not want this highlighted that this occurs, and that's your premise for the movie.
You got to be a completely anonymous or something.
And
like
so it's going there, all right. But the music was great. I got to play with Wayne Perkins, the guitarist that almost became a Rolling Stone. He was in L.A. and he was playing. Great acoustic player. He was playing with Joni Mitchell and people like that. He played on "Help Me, I'm Falling," and he played on great songs. And he's in the background. And just metronomic, you know, just great, sensitive, good acoustic guitar. He played on it, and then we had a great harmonica player that played on it. So I really enjoyed doing it, whether it got worked or not. I hate that it's out there like a orphan. I'd love for my songs to have a home. Somebody cut some of my music.
So here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You've done some co-writing, and there's a big issue of when the song's done. Like, how do you split it up, you know? And I know traditionally back when they first started publishing music, it was thought of as melody and lyrics.
That's
so you had the 2 things, but
Music and words.
it seems as time has gone by, like you'll have...
It's all merged together.
That's back in the day of, like, before there's
There's
bands.
never an A&R person anymore either. There's not an arranger.
Well, but nowadays you have, since like the Beatles and whatever, you have the bands are arranging as they rehearse. They're coming up with, and they might even come up with a cool intro or bridge that wasn't there when the song was written. And so
that's why your producer is crucial. If he can add an element of control or suggest something cool.
But does any of that stuff ever enter into
the writing,
the split? Because, you know, sometimes the arrangement makes it.
Well, in certain communities, Nashville, they do a thing that if you're in the room, you get an equal portion, as I've heard.
Or if maybe if
I'm not involved in that at all, you know. If I write with you, I write with you, you know. And just because we're all on the golf flight doesn't mean that we get to share the tune, you know.
Yeah.
Unless there is really substantive stuff added to it, you know.
If you contribute.
You can add something more than "and," "the," "she." You know, if you could add a thought, an idea, a path.
I don't normally do this, but there was one recording I did years ago, and it was with Jerry Cortez and Kevin Zuffi and Jimmy Sanchez. And we're doing this New Orleans-y kind of thing. And I had this sound I wanted. I wanted sort of a Chuck Berry sound, but I wanted it to be kind of legit. I didn't want it to be his sound, but I wanted those
It's just
riffs.
totally derivative. You wanted something original in that mode.
Right. So I borrowed this L5 Gibson from my friend Vic Smith, which at that point was a $5,000 guitar. It's probably, I don't know what it's worth now.
Yeah.
Those
it's on the wall. Some entrepreneurs.
Those thick jazz guitars with the heavy strings.
Yeah.
And I gave it to Jerry.
I played with a guy that played a Kessel, a Barney Kessel, a purple left-handed one.
Well, I did. I gave it to Jerry on purpose because I wanted, you know, that this kind of stuff, and I didn't want. He's such a gunslinger, man. He's so fast. I wanted to force him to slow down, for this particular
Make it
song.
work because you have to reach around the neck. It's so big.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful tone, man. It's just a great tone, and he's an amazing player. So we started doing this song, and there, I had the lyrics on and everything. And then there was one take where it just came alive, and then at the very end, it's a song about going down the road called Motorify. It's all about, maybe we had an argument the night before, but let's just go out and have a new day let's just go on an adventure. Let's get out of here. Let's go do something. And so at the end of the song, there's a solo, and then it comes, there's bridge solo, and then it comes back to some singing, and then it just does this vamp out, and they got really into the spirit of this on this one take, and it took on this life of its own, and all of a sudden it did a right turn. Like Cortez started playing this weird 6/9 chord that it was like his hand was all spread out,
a handful,
very cool sounding, and then the piano player kind of went, oh, and he did something, and then the drummer dropped what he was doing, and
they
moved
wrote
over.
A portion of
he went over, started doing this
side stick.
He had another snare that had more of a rumba kind of sound to it, so he moved over to that, and but the groove kept going. He just kind of took a right
went
turn.
Latin,
and then it was like perfect. Like, oh, we just took the right. We're heading down the other highway, and we're gone. Once you fade him out. And I was like, this. So I gave him a piece of the song.
Oh, that's great. That's
just
right. They've added substantial information to it.
And a lot of times that'll happen, but in a minor way. So you don't go all that far. But I thought.
I mean, I don't think that you should reward a player for a lick or a little rhythm thing unless it is substantial, unless it makes the song thing.
Well, it's kind of like the fact that we all went somewhere together. That seemed just special enough to me, and it was one of those
That's
things
creating when you do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, there's a little of that going on all the time, but when it really happens like that, I just go ahead and. I mean, it's not like they made any money off it anyway, but...
Well, what happened on the thing when I co-wrote the two songs with Delbert was I had one almost finished, and we needed another verse, and he had one almost finished, and so it was like 60-40. Just go that way, or 60-30-70, whatever you think. You got two pieces of it. There's another one,
I think, too,
just be fair.
It's smart to come up with that split really soon after it's written.
Yeah.
Because if you wait for years to go by, you have completely different ideas of what happened.
In fact, the song that I had taken to the thing got cut by somebody in Nashville. They saw the Delbert name on there, and and it was a good song. It's called "Let Me Teach You All of My Mistakes." It's great. I can tell you got just what it takes. Let me teach you all of my mistakes.
That sounds like a
and
Delbert
that goes
song.
for you guys trying to write too. Don't copy my method because I don't have one. I went to carry Bonnie Hayes' hat back to her. She had played a gig out here at Rancho, Nicasio. That's where we are. And so I was taking her hat back. I called, hey, Bonnie, you left your knit hat here. It's great. Can I bring it to you? Yeah, come on over here. She told me where she lived in Fairfax. And so I drove over there, and she says, I've got some people over here. We're doing some stuff, but come on in. So I pulled in, and I walked in. And she's having a little songwriter class, and there were like 3 or 4 people there, and they were working on stuff and talking about method and how you do stuff. And she said, what's your method? And I said, well, it's kind of like fishing. I go and see if I get anything. And she says, oh no, we have ways that you do, like you're writing out a formula, you're making something up, and that is a very valid way to do it.
Well, she's got a creative writing background before she's, I think, wrote songs.
And
so,
she was teaching, too. And to teach, you have to give people something more than atmosphere. Mine is a lot of atmosphere makes it. I could write from a single word.
You could say, have you ever been to Nicasio?
Yeah, well, I could write from a single word or an idea or a melody or a rhythm that would suggest a song. Andre Pessis, great writer in the Bay Area, and he and I wrote a song called called "Someone to Love Me," and it had a song called "Need a Little Love and Chemistry." All right, so 3 years later, he's co-writing with Bonnie, and they write a song called "Chemistry." Completely different take on it. It was all about that, not the whole thing. The other ones, I'm searching for somebody, and she was writing about, we got it, and this is why. This is the reason. And that is not pilfering. That's inspiration.
Yeah.
And if I can inspire somebody to write something, good.
Yeah.
But there are people that sit down and imitate, and take the song and take it apart and figure out how they did it and made a pattern for it, and write that pattern. I don't like to do that. I don't want to do a formula.
You know,
and
I'm
it
with
works because people have a hit and they want one that sounds just like it right behind it.
I'm with you, but a different topic will sometimes imply a different approach. You know, like there's I studied filmmaking for a long time, and filmmaking, they've figured out any kind of scenario that happens, and they have a name for it, you know. So they'll have something that happens on. They say if it's a really good movie, you don't need any dialogue hardly because it tells the story.
It tells the story.
And just visually things that happen and how they.
They did it with silent films.
And then if the camera's pointing down, if it's pointing up, if various things that. And so I think that sometimes if a bridge comes out of nowhere and goes a weird place, if you're having a really angst-ridden song, then it's appropriate. You know, if you're doing a love ballad, it may not, you know, it may don't need all that weirdness. You know? So yeah.
Well, I put one of those in. I wrote a Frank Zappa moment in one of my songs. Our song is going, and it goes, ooh, and it goes like bing, bing, ding, ding, into another key and another time.
Like it fell down a hole or something.
Yeah, like whoa, and then it went right back into the rhythm, and it was like that's just my Frank Zappa moment in that song.
So what was the theme of that song?
That song was. Oh, I can't even think. But the moment was what was so funny. Everybody in the band went, whoa. And I showed it to them, and I said, here's what I'm doing. And they went, why? And I said, it's a Frank Zappa moment. Like Zappa would take the
song apparently
absurd and put it into something, you know? He would write about crazy stuff, like call any vegetable.
Oh, yeah.
And the chances are good the vegetable will respond to you.
Help on a rock.
Yeah. And just stuff. He was a Dada writer, and then he was a very serious classical writer too.
An amazing player too. So some people say music is what emotions sound like. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, it can evoke emotion. I have played for people and they start crying, and I'm going, oh my God. Yeah, and I want you to enjoy it and relate to it, but she says, it's okay, I really like your song, but you know, and this has happened 2 or 3 times.
It's really apparent in movies, when you're watching movies too, because there'll be a scene where this thing happens that startles you, and then this music will creep in and it sort of
reinforces that.
and then
sets it up.
Well, that's what this scene sounds like. If you turned it into music, there it is.
It's evocative, yeah. And, you know, not that I want to do that. I was making a joke out of the Barry Manilow. I write the songs that make the young girls cry. It's like, get out of here. I'm just writing a song that's meaningful.
Yeah.
And if it hits you that hard, it worked. But I didn't want that to be your reaction. But that's okay if it matters. And that's what she said. Yeah, that means a lot to me. I love that. And it was about what do you do? It's a song that Huey cut called Let Her Go and Start Over, and it's about a divorce. And I call it my amicable divorce song.
Let
her go and start over. My friends all tell me, what can I do to be fair to me and fair to you? My friends tell me, let her go and start over. There ain't nothing else you can do. Nice. Find that one if you can. It was on a Huey Lewis album that just wasn't gigantic, and it was a great album. I don't know what happened with it.
You know, I was talking about this Canty song where she has a song called True, where she goes, how can I be true to me and be true to you?
Same true.
Once those were the same thing.
Yeah.
And maybe now they're not very. No. So that kind of ties in with that. Yeah.
Let her go and start over. There ain't nothing you can do.
So what? This is great, Mike. I really appreciate you having a chat with me, and I want to. Just going to ask you one other thing. Do you have anything lately that caught your ear that you've been listening to, or any kind of new inspiration of any kind lately?
Well, this is terrible, but radio is kind of letting me down in that it has a market it has to sell to.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've gone through so many Gen X, Gen Y, Gen J. You know what? I don't know what people of that age want to hear, and I can't speak directly to them except if they get the concept of check the word out. You know, there are songs that don't have any words. They're just like feeling, you know. It was a big hit. I thought it was funny. It was amusing. You could dance to it. Who let the dogs out? Who? And what does that mean? You know, it's like a couple look at each other and kind of romantically go, they're playing our song, you know, and it's like, okay. And there used to be on TBS, Turner Broadcast System, they used to do the Braves, and it was Major League Baseball, and it was free. Just cut on your TV and watch it. And we used to go to the games because it was $6 tickets in the upper bleachers, and we'd just go and have beer and watch the game. And there was a guy that walked around, and he's kind of handsome, big, tall, black cat with a hot dog thing on the front, and you got to be strong and big to do that up and down the stands. And he'd go, hot dog, and then he would go woo woo like like a Doberman. He had the sound of a Doberman next door, and he would bark, and I'm sure that's where that song came from.
Wow.
They're watching the Braves, and this guy's barking like a dog, and it was like, that guy ought to get some credit.
Well, Huey Piano Smith apparently wrote a lot of songs based on school rhymes, like schoolyard rhymes and things.
Sure.
Like, that Iko on day.
Iko was something they would say when they would skip rope or something.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of that. It's rhythmic, and it's for kids, and kids are the people who buy the records. And
it might even be, some of those might go back and be like kind of old
field
heirloom
chants
tunes
or something.
Yeah.
Field chants and stuff, What was the one that Taj did? Hey now, line the track Atlanta. Hey now. And it was great stuff, New Orleans is such a mix of cool stuff.
Yeah.
I write some of that, but I'm not a boogie-woogie piano player. I just play enough piano to accompany my voice.
Yeah.
And write songs that I can sing.
Boy, it works for me. Sounds
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. Try to accompany yourself and others, perhaps. And when you're writing, keep everything you come up with. If you think it's valid enough, write it down, because 2 years from now you might open it up and have a revelation, and find stuff that you didn't finish. I find things all the time. I keep a lot of stuff. I've got stuff from 1968. I found a book that I was writing songs in 1968,
Wow.
and it was like, what? Way back.
I had a song I was working on back when all those guys were still in town. Huey Lewis, like Sean Hopper was helping me with it. He was fleshing to put some
Good
keys
players. All of the guys are great musicians.
And he actually handed it in. They were looking for songs for an album coming up, and he said something to me. He goes, I have to tell you, we're not doing your song, but I did want to tell you that of all the ones that we listened to, yours came the close. And I was like, the closest. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that makes me feel really good or really bad.
No, that means you got something.
But,
and they get a lot of stuff.
Something was missing, I would have done it myself, but I sort of thought, there's something not quite there. There's 2 verses and a bridge, but it's not enough. So 25 years later, I was picking up, I go, I was kind of like this song, and I listened to it, and I go, and then what got me was the one verse was like first person, talking about, here's where I'm at, and another was like third person. And I thought, and then all of a sudden I came up with this, idea of doing a second person, so the focus just moves around constantly in the song, and it made it work, but it was like took me
3-camera shoot,
25 years to get there. I was like, what the hell?
I know. Well, it's good. Rework it, see if the idea works. At least go back and see what you did and your progression. You could see yourself getting better.
And sometimes I have a lot of stuff on tape, a little cassettes, or now on the phone. And I'll listen to some old pieces of ideas, and half of them are like, what was I thinking? And then
just
half
jump.
are like, hey, wait a minute, why didn't I?
That could work.
Yeah.
That could work if we fleshed it out.
Yeah.
I had written some stuff with some people, and it was laughable, and then on another page it was good, and it should be finished, and we just didn't get around to finishing it. Sometimes you have material, you just can't get it over the hump to make it exist as an entity.
Sometimes you need to let it sit there, because you come back later with another perspective.
Yeah,
it's almost like one way to get another person in the room for their opinion is to go away for a while and come back yourself, and you're a different person.
Yeah, and some people consider music that they're not involved with just noise. Or like I said, wallpaper. It could just be something that exists in the room. There's so much music everywhere you go that it's just something you expect to be there.
Yeah.
Or you turn down, somebody pulls up and their car's blowing, and it's like, that's pretty hip, And I was playing something on the radio, and somebody was like going, yeah, because the radio was playing loud, and I had the window down. And I called up Crush one time, and I said, thank you for playing Ray Charles. In the middle of everything else, here's Ray Charles singing, I wish it was me in that Cadillac.
Should have been me, yeah.
It should have been me, yeah. And it was just a revelation, and it was just like something else. Like books. Books are unique, and your songs can be like that.
Well, all right, Mike. Appreciate it, man.
Cool.
Mr.
Cool.
Mike Duke.
Let's hope that somebody writes a hit because we told them a word.
Yeah,
that
there
they
we
like
go.
to
Pick
like
up
to hear.
one little crumb.
One tidbit.
All right.
I love her move. It ain't no joke. Why do you think they call them cowpokes?
Special thanks to Mike Duke for joining me today on Where Do the Songs Come From? Check out more at the Fifth Mo channel on YouTube.com.